I am thrilled to welcome up on stage Dean Willow Bay of USC Annenberg and the former governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm going to give you that. Nice to see you. And thrilled to have Governor Schwarzenegger here with us. As you know, Governor Schwarzenegger has been fighting climate change for more than 20 years. We may have to increase that a little bit as we sit here. As governor, you may remember he created a multi-pronged action plan that helped to make this state a world leader in efforts to improve our climate. He signed scores of bills and executive orders working to improve clean air, clean water, and clean energy. And since leaving office, you've continued to be a champion in this fight. Certainly here at USC Schwarzenegger Institute, where it's one of their key platforms, efforts that are global. You founded the Schwarzenegger Climate Initiative, which builds awareness of the climate crisis and the urgent need for action. And we are incredibly grateful that you are able to join us today. I should start by pointing out that this week you are not the most famous Schwarzenegger in the family. Congratulations. Seriously, well done, Dad.
I like that. Right away putting me in my place.
Well, I will say that, look, as somebody that leads a school and knows the joy of sending young people out into the world, as a parent who knows the joy of that, I can imagine that this is an incredibly proud moment for the Schwarzenegger family.
No, absolutely. Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm very excited to be here. I always love coming to USC, to our campus here. We've had now for, I think 12 years or so, the Schwarzenegger Institute, and which is going really well. And it's an institute that brings awareness to issues like the environment or healthcare, homelessness, infrastructure, all of those kind of issues that are very important, water issues and so on. And so when I was asked by Willow to come in here and to talk to her about the environment, of course, I love not only to talk to her, because I'm a big fan of her and what she has accomplished here at USC with the Annenberg School of Communication. But also I'm a big fan of her husband, of Bob Iger, who is, of course, a genius with running Disney Studio and all this stuff. And so and she's just, it's just wonderful to talk to. So I love being here today.
Thank you.
And so congratulations. Let's give her a big hand for the great work that she's been doing. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, now are you ready to talk climate? Because we need your advice.
No, but I think it is very important to also know that I'm very proud of my children also. Yes. But I cannot take the credit alone, because I think that 80% of it, the credit goes to my ex-wife, Maria Shriver.
We'll give her a round.
She has been an extraordinary mother. Mm-hmm. And, I think we have done a good job with parenting and all that stuff. And, all of our kids are really doing well. But it is right what you said. I walk into the gym now. I go to Gold's Gym in the morning, and then this girl comes up to me, really beautiful girl, and she says, "Can I have your contact?" I felt right away very good. The old guy with 77 has a young girl approaching and says, "Can I have your contact?" And I said, "Why?" And she says, "Well, because I want to get in touch with Patrick." So they put me right in place, right? So anyway, so Patrick is the big star now. I'm very happy about that White Lotus is doing so well. But now, let's talk about the environment.
Now talk about the environment. Thank you. Making it clear just who's in charge. In all seriousness, this is a very disorienting moment. We come following 2024, the hottest year on record, a series of climate-accelerated disasters, storms, floods, fires, at a moment when the vast majority of Americans understand and appreciate climate change is real. 7 out of 10 Americans, the most since we've been measuring this. Yet it didn't show up as an issue, a hot button issue in the election. And now we are watching an administration dismantle so much of the important climate work that has preceded it. How do you make sense of this moment as someone who cares so deeply about this?
Well, I mean, first of all, you're absolutely correct that we see the effect of climate change more and more now, with the fires, the storms, and the weather around the world, not just here in America. But the bottom line is that I think there's 2 issues here. One of them is you're talking about that Trump is now in the White House, and number 2, why are people not really making this kind of one of their most important issues? I don't think that you ever will have, kind of something that is more important than putting food on the table and jobs and security. Those are always important issues, I think, in America. But climate change will never be, I think, even if you're lucky, in the top 10. And the reason is because the word climate change is really a stupid name. Because you got to go and use the word pollution and not climate change. Because the environmentalists, and I've gotten to know them over the years, being governor and all this, very well. They mean really well, and they're working very hard. But they sometimes talk to each other, and they love to use things like climate. I mean, even guys like President Biden will have the State of the Union address, and he says, let me talk a little bit about climate. And I said, this is stupid. Why not say, let me talk a little bit about our pollution problem? Because what does climate mean? And what does carbon neutrality mean? What does all this mean? They talk and it goes right over people's heads. And I realized that when I was governor of California, we had the oil companies fighting us all the time and wanting to derail us and take out all of our environmental laws. They even had a proposition they put on a ballot, and they were 60% ahead to really wipe out all of our environmental progress that we've made in California. And we couldn't gain any ground. We said, climate change, and we talked about the icebergs, and we talked about the polar bear, and we talked about the rising sea levels and all. And nothing happened. The points changed 2 or 3 in the polls. And then someone sent us, was from the Heart Lung Association, or from the Lung Association in America, a little video that showed how kids are getting asthma because of pollution, not because of climate change. You don't get asthma if it's climate change, pollution. And then we looked at that and they said, let's try that. And we put that out there as a commercial for us to win and to beat the oil companies and the coal companies. And immediately the numbers flipped. They were ahead 60-40. A month later, we were ahead 60-40, and we won, and we beat them. All because of communication, because we used a different way. We talked about the health, we talked about pollution, and this commercial had a kid kind of like sucking on it, kind of, and talking about asthma, how these little kids get asthma because of pollution. So people paid attention to that and said, oh my God, I don't want my kid to get sick or to die because of pollution. And people started paying attention to that. So this is why it is so important that, especially since we are here we're talking about communication. This is what this is all about, right? How do we communicate better? And this is what it is about, is we got to find ways to communicate better about pollution and the danger of pollution, rather than calling it those fancy names like climate change and carbon neutrality and going green and going blue, and everyone has a different color and all of this stuff. I mean, Willow's husband knows that the important thing is to make a great movie. But then, how do you sell that movie? So they have at Disney and in every studio, experts sitting there and debating over how should we sell this movie? Okay, so there's action in it, so should we talk about action? Well, maybe for the male audience, we're going to go and stress the action. And then for the science fiction audience, we stress that the visual effects in the science fiction part of it. And then for the women, we stress the love story in it. And so they think about all of this stuff. How do we communicate and now sell this great movie and let the world know about this movie? So it's all about communication, and the same is also with the environment. So this is why I think this is the important thing, is in communicating better. Number two, when it comes to Trump, don't ever use Trump as an easy excuse out, because it makes no difference who is there. 70% of the action when it comes to the environment is on a local level. So we had, when I was governor, we had the Bush administration. Do you think they were excited about my environmental stuff? No. They were trying to derail us in every step of the way. They didn't even want to give us the waiver so we can regulate our own air. But we continued on. We took them to court, and to the next level of the court. And then he went to the Supreme Court, and we won. The Supreme Court said, yes, California has the right to regulate its own air. The federal government cannot stop. So we confronted the thing. We never just bowed down and said, oh, okay, you're more powerful, federal government, so we're going to stop doing anything environmentally friendly. No, we kept building millions of solar roofs in California. We went from 19% of renewables to 50% of renewables, and we reduced greenhouse gases and pollution by 25%. So this is the kind of things that we did on a local level and on a state level. We didn't wait for the federal government or for a president to do it. As a matter of fact, I just had lunch the other day with the dean of the St. Andrews University. And she was telling me that they have been existing since 1409 or something like that. Since 1409. And she was enthusiastically telling me how they're building solar panels on every single building at the university. She says, we don't pay attention. I said, if Trump is president or not. I said, we build our solar panels on top of those buildings no matter what. And she says, we have been around since 1400, so that means that we went through all of those crazy kings that we had and queens, and all of the First World War and the Second World War, Hitler and all of those things, and they kept moving on. So never stop because there's one person there that maybe doesn't think like we do. So we have to work around of that. Remember what Nietzsche said, for every attack there's a defense. So we on a local level, no one is going to stop California for putting solar panels on every warehouse in California. Trump is not going to be there and arrest people that are working on a thing. He maybe arrests other people, but not the people that are putting solar panels on there. So we can do all of those things right now. So never use the excuse of Trump. Just go. Every individual has the power. And I think that even our dean at this university is very eager to make all of those buildings kind of energy efficient and to have solar panels on it and all this stuff. So we are doing this on a local level. And so that's what we have to concentrate on, to just move forward, and nothing should ever stop us.
Thank you for that. One of the things that Planet Media works on is really empowering our young people to increase their understanding, increase their agency, and compel them to take action in ways that work for our young people. What advice do you have to the adults in the room about how to support young people in developing this kind of understanding and this kind of agency?
I think the important thing is, again, communication, because we have a tendency of always kind of telling young people the world they're inheriting is terrible. It's doom and gloom. It's the end of the world. And I think that we have to do it the other way around. because eventually your brain gets numb from hearing, that, if we continue like this with the environment, that we will exceed the 1.5 degrees temperature, and then it will get hotter and we will not be able to grow the food anymore, and there will be wars breaking out worldwide, and it will be the end of the world. Well, eventually people start throwing in the towel and say, forget it. If that's the future, then why would I do anything? So we have to, it's like, when I was 15 years old, and I was in Austria, and I wanted to be Mr. Universe. Well, there was no one in Austria that ever won Mr. Universe. So, of course, there were people around that said you would never make it. But there was this one coach in a weightlifting club that said, oh, man, you have potential, Arnold. I didn't have that much different potential as anyone else, but he buttered me up. He said, oh, you have potential. I mean, look at those arms. I had skinny arms, right? He says, look at those arms. He says, I've seen you now for a month doing bench press. I mean, look at the amount of weight, 25 pounds more you're bench pressing now than a month ago. I've never even seen that before. You're going to go all the way. So it was him giving me hope that made me all of a sudden create a vision of me becoming a world champion. And so that's why I know it is so much more important to be positive and to give people hope. Now, I know that people say that hope is not a good strategy and all of this stuff, but you still have to have hope. And I think there is a way forward. As I've just said, California has moved forward. Los Angeles has moved forward in an environmental way. Each and every one of us can do something. And this is one of the things, the criticisms that I have about a lot of environmental events and conferences. They never really talk about what can be done. That you say to someone, you have the power to go and to purchase things that are being produced locally, rather than in China or in Japan or in another country. Because if you buy jeans that are done in Italy, they have to be shipped over here. Well, guess what? The shipping is one of the top polluters. Those ships, those are diesel ships that are burning the dirtiest diesel fuel. And those ships, 15 of the biggest ships, cargo ships, create more pollution than all of the traffic of all the cars in the world. This is how much pollution they create. So you should think about it. You have that power to buy local stuff rather than to buy something that says made in Italy. Now, nothing against Italian products or nothing against Chinese products or Japanese products, but if you want to be environmentally friendly, that's the power that you have. And so you can do the things at home. They have smart metering and all of this kind of stuff, so that you have equipment there that turns off automatically when you leave the house, you air condition, and it turns off the lights, everything gets turned off. Imagine how much electricity did you save. I have to tell you that in California, we didn't build that much more kind of electricity in the last 30, 40 years. But we came down with the consumption of electricity because of technology. The technology is available, with TV and with the blender that you use and with all of this stuff. So you have the power to purchase the things that are energy efficient. So I think this is the important thing, is to let people know that each and every one of us has a certain amount of power to get things done. And that together is really the great power. People power. Remember that no matter what movement we're talking about, if you talk about the anti-apartheid movement or the civil rights movement or the suffrage movement or the independence movement in India, all of those movements were people movements. And they were successful because people worked together. They didn't wait for the government. The people had the power, and the people created the change. And that's what you have to do, and that's what we have to tell our students all the time.
And so how do we do that with our students? Because we hear, and Planet Media has released some great research that says that young people really feel a great amount of anxiety, and they're very tentative because they don't feel like they understand the root of the problems or the path to solutions. So what would your advice be to guide students through, or young people through, those points of anxiety?
I think that we have to just let them know that they have the power to create the change. They shouldn't take things lying down, because young people today, a lot of times, they just go and get on their phone, on their iPhone, or the Samsung, the iPads, or the computer, whatever it may be, and they just see what is being done out there, or the opinions of everyone else, rather than forming their own opinion. So when I grew up, I didn't have a television, I didn't have a telephone, I didn't have an iPad, an iPhone, or anything, a computer, or anything like that. So I had to think for myself, how do I get out of this village here? How do I get to America? And I had to kind of figure it all out myself, sitting there hours and hours and thinking and creating this dream and all of this. And so I think we have to empower young people and let them know, turn this off and start thinking for yourself and start coming up with your plan, but you have the power to create change. So this is, we always have to emphasize, that's what I've done with my kids all the time, say you have the power to create change. Don't just complain about all of this stuff, because there's a lot of, if you look around, there's a lot to complain about. Yes, but there's also a lot of good stories where people do remarkable stuff. And to me, I focus rather on that and copy that. It's not even that you have to create your own new thing. You can copy. Because there is, right now in Japan, someone that has come up with a new way of saving energy. And it is online. We just have to search for it. And that's why I always say, when I was in Sacramento, I always called the legislators bird brains. And
which they loved, really.
It was
great.
insulting, obviously, and maybe I shouldn't have called them that, because then I had to work with them again, right? I mean, so it doesn't really work that well. But I mean, that was just my personality. But the reason why I called them that was because they were not worldly. They were not traveling around the world. So when I talked about, let's not go and build infrastructure and build more freeways, their mind was set to build wider the freeway, to get another lane this way. And so they had to buy all the houses and all the properties there, which was a fortune. I said, why don't we do it like in Japan or like in Shanghai or in Seoul, where they built the freeway on top of the freeway. The traffic that goes this way drives on top, the traffic that goes this way drives on the bottom. Very simple. I said, we don't have to buy all these properties. Oh, I've never seen that before. Well, I said, because you've never gone out of Bakersfield. I said, see, of course you have never seen it before. So, so it's like, so to me, I mean, like with the homeless issue, I mean, there's, in Los Angeles, they're struggling with the homeless issue for years and years and years, for 20 years now. I said to the mayor and to the governor, have you ever thought about going to Vienna? There's no homeless. In Budapest, there's no homeless. In Prague, there's no homeless. I said, have you ever gone to those cities and to have a kind of study? What is their method? There's a reason why there's no homeless. Now, of course, they have a different political system and different legal system and all of those things, but we can copy. I didn't invent the curl. I didn't, I swear to you.
Wait, but what about that Arnold
Even though I got the
thing?
biggest biceps, but I copied the curl. I copied the bench press, I copied the squat, I copied the deadlift, I copied all those things, and then I refined it. And that's what we have to do. We can copy all this stuff. There's great, great stuff all over the world and answers all over the world. If it is medical answers or with the environment, let's copy that. And we should encourage young kids, that's what they should do.
So, I mentioned, which is such important advice, right? Here in California, we think of the world in terms of California, but you really have a global perspective, and you bring people together every year with your World Summit. And your last summit, you focused on tools for a healthy planet. So besides the solution that you cited from Japan, were there other tools that were shared and surfaced that you're particularly excited about that we should be copying?
Well, I think that the most important thing is it's not just a step-by-step thing, but it is an attitude. People have a tendency of using excuses, and we have got to let people know that they have the power. It's just that simple. Because people, like for instance in California, they've said, did you see the fires? This is because of climate change. I said, yeah. I said, but we knew that. I said, I made it very clear when I was governor that there is no more fire season from the spring to the summer to the fall. That the fire season is now all year round. So what does that mean? That means don't be so stupid and lay off firefighters 3 months out of the year. In California, they lay off a quarter to a third of the firefighters and let them go home. But there is no fire season. There's all year round the fire season. So now when the fire comes in November, they don't have enough firefighters. And therefore, not enough of the fire trucks can be used because they don't have the drivers and the people that you use them. And so this is what the problem was in the last fire. It was people failed, not climate change. Yeah, climate change creates now more fire and wipes out this idea that we have 9 months out of the year, 6 months out of the year fires. Now it's all year round. But we know that. And there's the 7 Ps. Proper prior planning prevents pissed poor performance. Okay, this is in the Marines. In American Marines, that's what they learn. Proper prior planning prevents pissed poor performance. So if you use at all times the 7 Ps, what happens? You're prepared. You're prepared. And they were not. They didn't have enough manpower. The mayor of Los Angeles defunds, that's the losing, giving them less money to the fire department. They had no water up there in the Palisades when they wanted to draw water because they was not prepared, because there was a budget problem with that. And it said nothing was prepared. Yeah. So those leaders that we have were not really prepared for this kind of a disaster. And that's what cost, according to the LA Times, $250 billion of damage and of economic slowdown and all of those things. And just before then was the Camp Fire, where almost 100 people had to lose their lives because they were not prepared. So this is why it is so important that we prepare. So it's an attitude thing, is you got to be prepared. Are we prepared for an earthquake? I say no. Imagine now, do you have the fire coming like we had and an earthquake at the same time? When I was governor, we made sure that all the hospitals have enough carts to put a parking lot tent together and they have patients lying out there in carts because all the hospitals are filled. You can't get anyone in a hospital. So imagine it's an emergency. Where do you put your people? So the governor after me sold the carts and sold all of the ventilators and all of the equipment because there was a budget problem. How can you sell something that saves lives? Right? So this is why I'm saying the 7 Ps, you got to always be prepared. We had drills. Every year we had drills of everyone coming together. The local firefighters, the state firefighters, the police, the CHP, everyone coming together and solving the problem. We made up a kind of a disaster. Now I don't even know if they do that anymore. Yeah. So it's the preparation. So this is what I'm saying.
It's the Ps.
It's the Ps. It's like but it's an attitude thing. To me, it's all about being always ready for anything. Yeah. You got to always be ready for anything.
So I'm going to close, thank you, because you've given us a sense of action, activity, and hope. But I'm going to close by asking, you're going to kick us off a question that we're going to be asking everybody today, which is, in just 2 words, tell us what motivates you to act on climate change or fighting pollution.
Terminate pollution.
Governor, It is a pleasure
Thank
to
you
have
very much.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Just remember, everybody, anything can be done. Anything.
Thank you, thank you. Going this